Welcome back to Pop Dissected. Today, we're going to be discussing Lady Gaga's third studio record, Artpop. Artpop is arguably Lady Gaga's most divisive record, with reviews spread all across the board. So in today's video, we're going to be taking an analytical dive to see what missed the mark, and to see if this record was misunderstood and ahead of its time, or if it was just a record that did not live up to everyone's expectations. Before we begin, it's important to say this video's content is based off critical reviews, reactions by the public, as well as the record's own recognition. This is not a video intended to slander or misrepresent the record or Gaga. It is simply a retrospective look at a record that had critics and fans divided. So, let's begin. First, we have to recognize that Artpop by no means was a flop, a term people will use pretty loosely for anything that doesn't produce immense success. Artpop reached number 1 on 10 charts, including the Hot 100, and debuted with 258,000 copies within its first week. In comparison, Born This Way debuted with 1.1 million copies within its first week. With Artpop's severe plunge in first week sales in comparison, some people had jumped onto an inexplicable conclusion that Lady Gaga was over and that she was a flop. It's important to know that a number 1 is an immense achievement, regardless of how the specific numbers break down. A lot of criticism comes to artists when they don't peak with every single thing they put out, but any charted position should be recognized, because at the end of the day, it's about the music, its message, and its story, not the charts. The first reason Artpop did not seem to connect with audiences was the way Gaga had initially presented the record, a common theme for albums that miss the mark with wide audiences. In many interviews, Gaga explained Artpop as being a poetic musical journey and reverse Warholian.
But I would say that Artpop is a real spiritual experience with very loud electronic music. And this rebirth is now that art culture is coming into pop culture, as opposed to Marilyn being the subject of the canvas. Marilyn herself is now the canvas. So this is what Artpop is all about. It's about making the artist the muse and the musician.
Many of Gaga's descriptions of Artpop painted it as being deep, culturally significant, and an artistically groundbreaking piece of work. Whether you agree or not is up to your own interpretation. But with these descriptors, Gaga, intentionally or not, set Artpop at a very high standard, which created high expectations for audiences, especially following her massively successful Born This Way era. So let's begin our journey, taking a single by single look at Artpop to see how the songs chosen to represent the record may have hurt it, as well as its overall reputation. Applause was the first single, released on August 12, 2013. Applause was predicted to sell around 400,000 copies in its debut, and the prediction was then later lowered to 225,000. Applause later debuted at number 6 on the Hot 100, and number 3 on the digital songs chart with 218,000 copies sold. Roar debuted at 82 on the Hot 100 based off airplay, before skyrocketing to number 2 with 557,000 copies sold. After a much heated debate between the two tracks, these chart positions only added fuel to the never-ending fire. Applause eventually rose, peaking at number 4. However, the track did reach number 1 on the Billboard US Dance and Dance Club charts. While critics praised the song, it was noted by many to not be on par with her previous leads. However, it was favorably compared to her material from her debut record, The Fame. Artpop's second single was the wildly controversial Do What You Want. Even though Venus was initially set to be the album's second single, Do What You Want was used in a variety of commercials, and due to its traction, Gaga and the label went to make it the true second single. Do What You Want came into conception from Gaga wanting to do something different than any of her previous singles. The song's idea stemmed from Gaga wanting to make a mockery of shallow journalism after she discovered the media mocking and making fun of her body. The track initially impacted Italian and UK radio on October 25th and 30th respectively. Upon success, it was rushed to release in the US on November 5th. During this time period, Lady Gaga made a series of tweets about comparisons to Katy Perry and Madonna. In her tweet regarding Katy, she stated she wrote for the music, not the charts. This in turn made people feel as if Gaga was cheapening the intent of Do What You Want, because instead of focusing on the message of the song she had intended, it seemed to draw more attention to herself and her public image, in a negative way. Nonetheless, Do What You Want received plenty of critical praise, peaking at 13 on the Hot 100. However, the music video drew large criticism and ended up being canceled altogether. Speculation came from the director, Terry Richardson, having multiple sexual harassment claims against him, and R. Kelly having been on trial for child pornography. Gaga received a lot of backlash for working with these two collaborators, and her character was heavily questioned. However, that was then, and this is now. In January of 2019, Gaga apologized for the collaboration, removing it from a variety of streaming services. She stated that her thinking was twisted at the time of working with R. Kelly. Guy was the third and final single off of Artpop, being released March 28, 2014. The track peaked at number 76 on the Hot 100, becoming Gaga's lowest charting single. The track received split criticism. Some praised it as one of the few standout tracks from Artpop, noting it should have been the lead over applause. However, others claimed it as a step backward, which had confused lyrics and overproduced music that didn't helpfully contribute to the track. Lady Gaga dubbed the video as pop culture acid, and that is up to anyone's own interpretation of what that means. This channels back to Gaga heavily promoting art pop with words of higher art and something innovative. The music video for Guy was met with favorable reviews in regards to its extravagance, but however, it was regarded as being bizarre and lacking cohesion. With these three singles, we can see how each one was met with adversity, despite all having generally positive reviews. Most of the adversity for these tracks were aimed at Gaga herself, as a person, as an artist, and as a creator. So with all this previous information in mind, let's take a look at Artpop itself, and how its reputation came to be. Knowing its first week debut in sales, the record was released November 6, 2013. Most of Artpop's criticism came from the lack of cohesion in the record. Artpop has been applauded for its diverse scope of experimental music and trying things unheard of, especially for Lady Gaga. However, many felt with all these things being thrown at the wall, not a lot seemed to stick. There was a kaleidoscope of vibrant sounds and moods, but they were all perceived to not fit together. It seemed as if Artpop was trying to build up too many different things, instead of sticking to a select theme, tone, or sound. An app for Artpop was released, which many dubbed as muddled and confusing, and Gaga's inclusion and collaboration with Jeff Koons and Maria Abramovich didn't interest most casual listeners. Gaga's seeming desire for a higher art missed the mark with a lot of audiences, because it didn't make sense at the time, or even at all to some people. Many of her live performances for this era were viewed as lacking spectacle and the immersion of her previous performances. There was also her undeniably controversial South by Southwest performance, which included someone vomiting on stage in the name of art, and this left a very negative impression on audiences. Another issue seen in Artpop, as said by Jason Lipschutz of Billboard, was the timing of the record. Katy Perry was making a soaring comeback after her immensely successful Teenage Dream era. Miley Cyrus was also making a fresh and controversial comeback from being a Disney star. Beyoncé released a surprise record, and Lorde was rocketing into the public eye. The back half of 2013 was literally a pop culture event, with some of the most iconic records of artists' careers being released, and that's an event we may never have again in the music industry. But with all the unintended competition for the charts, downloads, and attention, someone had to lose, for lack of a better word. And while Gaga is far from a loser, Artpop suffered in the midst of all this pop culture collision. Once touring rolled around, Gaga had no issue selling tickets to the Art Rave, the Artpop Ball tour. Lady Gaga is a performer, and she's unconventional in her style of performances, and she has an undeniable magnetism about her. It's worthy to note the tour grossed $83 million, $100 million less than the Born This Way ball. However, the Artpop ball did have 19 less shows than the Born This Way ball. Even though the venues on this tour were considerably smaller compared to her last tour, from the 75 of the 79 tour dates, the tour was 99% sold out, with 920,000 people in attendance. While Artpop may have missed the mark with general audiences, Gaga was able to rake in the dollars and crowds for her tour, because she's a performer, and no matter how unconventional, weird, or quirky her shows may be, they entertain, and that is the one thing people will always pay money for time and time again. Artpop is art, as all music is. Artpop was criticized for being a downgrade in Gaga's work, lacking cohesion and trying to be too many things at once. And with lots of negative press surrounding Gaga herself, that press stuck to the record's reputation and what it represented with Gaga's intentions. I believe Artpop was a necessary step back for Lady Gaga's career. All artists have an era or record that isn't warmly received and is flooded with negative media attention. I believe the criticism of this record led Gaga to make her most authentic, stripped down, and powerful record yet, with Joanne. Artpop wasn't a flop, and it wasn't a failure. It was an experimental record that didn't connect with everyone because of its massive scope being stretched all across the board. To put it simply, it was just too different and too experimental for audiences at the time. And 6 years later, many have taken a look back at their record to uncover that it's a unique stamp on Lady Gaga's career, and arguably her most divisive and controversial era to date. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. What are your opinions on Artpop? Comment below, and be sure to like and subscribe for more content on all your favorite pop stars.